Hello teachers, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about your second week of school, the first day. We're still with our opening unit, Are You Ready? So I have my highlighter, my pen or my pencil, my lesson plan blank, my sticky notes in case I want to mark anything in my book, my pacing guide, the workbook because we're going to look at homework. This is the first day that they'll be coming back with homework. And I also have our home to school book. We'll be doing one of our lessons out of this book today. So the first thing I'm going to do, of course, I'm going to write the date that I'm going to be teaching this lesson, which is going to be September the 20th this time on my lesson plan. And I'm going to look at my pacing guide and see what I'm doing today. So I'm doing lesson 2, and I'm doing the home to school lesson, Don't Miss the Bus. So I'm going to put unit, we're still on our beginning unit, which is called Warm Up. So the unit is Warm Up. And my lessons are lesson 2, pages 15 through 17, and home to school, pages 4 through 7. Now, I'm not putting anything in my materials yet because I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I know I'm going to have these things, my teacher's guide, my workbook, my home to school, but I don't usually list those because those are things that I take with me to every class. All right, it's our first day to have homework, so we're going to review workbook pages 4 and 5. That's right here on my pacing guide. Workbook pages 4 and 5. That's what I assigned or the other teacher assigned for the last class. And since it is our first time to come back with homework, I'm probably going to be pretty thorough in reviewing these homework pages. As we move through the semester and they get more familiar with doing homework, I'll spot check. But this time, since it's our first time, I'm probably going to go through all of these activities with them just to make sure that they understand how to do homework, and also to reinforce that I expect that they're going to come to class with those pages done. All right, our lesson opener. Remember, your lesson opener is something that is going to grab their attention, something that you want to have to get their attention. So I'm looking through my lesson plan book here, and I'm seeing, what are we talking about this time? Following directions, using possessive nouns and adjectives. Here's our vocabulary: answer, ask, listen, tell, write. We've got some pronunciation this time. Oh, here we are. We're looking at ID cards and birthdays, telling our name and our birthday, giving our address. Okay, so I might have something to do with ID cards. I might bring my driver's license something like that to show the class and ask them if they have anything like that to show their ID. My student last week that I went with him to get a library card, and he had a Mexican driver's license. So usually they're going to have some kind of ID. So I might ask them as our unit opener, when you go to the grocery store to cash a check, or you go to the bank to get money or make a deposit, do you have to show an ID? If so, what do you use? Here's my ID. I might draw a picture on the board of a driver's license with the different things that are on it, and we might talk about the different things that appear on the driver's license, your weight, your height, your name, that kind of thing. Do they put age on driver's license? Birthday. So I think I'm going to use something, and I might do a little more research. There might be some other forms of ID that I could bring in as well to show, but I'm going to put my lesson opener is going to be talk about identification, when you would have to use it, what it might be, that kind of thing. So up here on materials needed, I'm going to put driver's license. And other IDs. I might ask my mom for her ID because she doesn't have a driver's license anymore, but she has a Texas state issued ID, which looks a little bit different. So I might try to collect some different kinds of IDs so we can talk about those. And I can show them. I might have them laying on the table, or I might ask them to take out their IDs. Okay, so I've planned my lesson opener. I think it's relevant. I think it's important. I think it'll be something that they'll be interested in. And I always like to have the concrete item to show, especially for my lesson opener, so I'm going to bring in some of those. Vocabulary is the next thing on my lesson plan. So it says vocabulary is on page 16. Okay, and this looks like commands. Okay, they don't tell me that here at the beginning of my lesson, but I can tell by looking at them. Ask, listen, open, talk, write. So our vocabulary this time is commands used in class. I'm going to write that down, and then I'm going to put page 16. Lesson of the day concepts, and I'm going back now to the beginning of my lesson. That's where it's going to tell me what my concepts that I'm going to teach are. It says, and remember I like to sort mine into topics, so the life skill that they're going to learn is follow classroom directions, and that ties with our commands vocabulary. And then their grammar skill that we're teaching today is use possessive nouns and adjectives. And this will be a little bit of a review because we did talk about that in our last lesson. And then I'm also going to look, before I get too far, I don't want to get past I'm going to look in my home to school book and see what they say here. Okay, so they have a little bit different layout, and they have kind of talking points here at the top. And I might use this as my lesson opener if I wanted to start with the home to school instead of the textbook lesson. You can switch the order. Here are some good discussion starters. So you might decide you want to use this for your lesson opener and have a clock and maybe a class schedule and talk about what time do you have to get up in the morning, how long does it take your child to get ready for school. So here are some already given to you ideas that you might use for your lesson opener, but don't forget to bring your concrete object to introduce your lesson. Okay, so we're going to talk about school routine, getting ready for school. That's a life skill as well. Now I'm down to my activities. So, if you recall, I like to have sometimes something to reinforce the vocabulary, so I'm going to think about that. Maybe I want to do something with that. I'm going to look online and see what goes with this lesson. So I'm going to go to New Readers Press, and if I forget how to get there, I've got my little bookmark that gives me all that information. I'm going to click on ESL Citizenship and go down to Core ESL. I'm going to click on English No Problem. I'm going to choose Free Resources, and then I'm going to find Book 1, because I'm working with Level 1, so I'm going to go to the Book 1, Reproducible Masters. I'm going to fast forward to Lesson 2 of the first unit. So here's my unit, warm-up unit. Are you ready? And here is a master to use after Lesson 2. I'm teaching Lesson 2 today, so this would be an appropriate one to use. It's about syllable stress. So it's giving us the word ready. It's separating it into syllables, ready. And then column 3 says answer. So I'm going to go back up to my directions on how to use this master and figure out what it says. Syllable stress. Make a copy for each learner. Read the words in alphabetical order, reading 2 or 3 times. Column 1, write the number next to the word. Circle the syllable that's stressed. Okay, so ready would be, we would circle red, because that's where the stress falls. And then it says write the words in alphabetical order on the 3rd line. So that's why they have the word answer on the 3rd line, because it begins with an A. And here are the words that they have: answer, open, directions. So they're doing alphabetizing here, and they're identifying syllables here. And then here's another choice. Warm-up unit, are you ready? Information gap. Oh, I like this one because this is going to require them to work in pairs and talk to each other. So each partner, each team is going to get half of the page, and the first person has half of the information. So the first person knows that Lean lives on Lake Street, but they don't know where Showa lives. And the second person knows that Showa lives on Sutter Avenue, but they don't. I think I'm going to use this. This is going to get them talking and sharing information, and also identifying important things like state, zip code, telephone number, all those kinds of things that they may be asked out in the real world. So that is Master 13. So I'm going to use Master 13 as one of my activities. And I need one copy for every 2 students. So up here on materials needed, I'm going to assume I have 12 students, so I'm going to need 6 copies of Master 13. So that's one of my active engagement pieces. Now, what else might I do? I think I'm going to do something with vocabulary. I usually like to reinforce that. And we have not learned the game in my class yet. We have not learned the game of hot seat. So I think I'm going to do hot seat with the vocabulary words. Now the first time I teach them this, I'm really going to have to work with them because their default, because they don't speak English very well, is to use hand gestures. So if I have the word raise over the back of the person who's in the hot seat, they're probably going to do this. And I'm going to say, no, no, no. You have to use your words to help them guess, to give them clues, to help them guess what the word is. But of course, we've already talked about these words thoroughly before we play this game. So I'm going to give myself a little note here. I'm going to put play hot seat when I get to this page. After we've talked about the vocabulary, I'm going to do that game. And then I'm going to make another little note over here that after we do activity A on page 17, where we've talked about, we fill this in about the address, what the information is, what the birthday is, all the things we saw in the driver's license. Then I'm going to use Master 13 right here, because if I don't give myself a little sticky note, I get to talking and get busy and forget that I have all these fun things planned that I want us to do. So I put sticky notes either in the student book or in my teacher's guide, whichever one I'm looking at. Usually I look at the student book when I'm teaching the class, but when I'm planning, I'm usually looking at the teacher's edition because I want to read some of these things down here and see what I might like to do. And one of the things I noticed on the first page with our lesson are these little headphones right here. So that means that there's something on the CD that's in the gray box that goes with that lesson. There's also, you can read it, and it tells you right here, you can read this on page 118. So you might flip to the back of your teacher's guide and just read the listening script. I like to do that because I can control the pace. And it's faster than getting out the CD, but there is an advantage to using the CD because they get to hear somebody else's voice. And so that's up to you as a teacher what you want to do, but this will be in your gray box if you want to use it. Alright, so I've got 2 interactive activities planned. I'm going to go back to my home to school and see if there's anything there that I need to make a note of in my lesson plans. Here is our encounter with complete the story. I'm very excited about this because I want to teach my students how to do this. So I have made a list of the steps of how to do that. It's called How to Complete a Fill-in-the-Blank Exercise, and it lists all the steps that I'm going to teach my students. So I'm going to give you, the teachers, a copy of this as well. I like to write this on the whiteboard, but you could put it on your laminated chart and put it somewhere else in the classroom, or you could bring it with you when you're going to use it. I'm going to walk them through, when we do this page today in class, I'm going to walk them through all these steps to help them learn how to complete these, because there's a lot of these on the unit checks. And from experience, I know that that's where my students get hung up. So I want to give them a lot of support and teach them how to do that. So down here in notes, I'm going to write teach, fill in the blank. And that's going to take a while, so I need to know as I'm planning my day, I really want to allow plenty of time to do this. And I'll probably just stick this right here in my home to school, so it's with the page that I'm going to use it with. Alright, so I've got my activities, literature, so I'm going back to my pacing guide, and I'm going to see, okay, so today our literature is built into the lesson. We're reading Don't Miss the Bus. So I can write that down here if I want to, because up there I only have what pages I'm doing in home to school. So down here I'm going to write Don't Miss the Bus. So when I'm looking at my lesson plan later, home to school pages 4 to 7, but I know the title of that story is Don't Miss the Bus. And that might dictate what I want to bring in. Also, you know, I might want to bring a picture of kids getting on the bus, or I might want to bring a little bus to show, or, you know, something concrete that the students can relate to. Now I'm ready to write extra practice, and that is going to be home to school, pages 8 and 9, and workbook, pages 6 and 7. And I'm going to look at that with them, and I assign it. And I'm going to say, remember we did syllable stress today? That's what you're going to be doing here. We did this activity in our spirals. We were looking at our textbooks, but we did this in our spirals. Here's another one. You're going to use these fill in the blanks, and they're using your possessive adjectives, his, her, and their, which we talked about today. This is new, so I might spend a little time telling them how to fill in a crossword puzzle. And then, down here on exercise E, I remember last year when I was teaching this lesson that my students didn't understand what to put in these blanks. They made up words. But the words they're going to use are right here, and it tells them that. Write the words from exercise D in the sentences. But they didn't understand that. They either couldn't read it or they didn't process it when they read it. So I'm going to show them these words go in these blanks. So you're really using those words in two places. You're using them in the crossword puzzle, and then you're using them again down here to fill in the blank. And that's a great activity because that's reinforcing. If you'll notice, here are vocabulary words: spell, tell, write. Remember our commands: listen, ask. So now they've had lots of practice with the vocabulary. And that's what I'm going to assign for homework. I'm going to look up here and make sure I have reading. Okay, we have reading here, we have reading here, and we have lots of reading in our home to school. Check. Writing. Yes, we have fill in the blank activities. And right here at the end we have writing. They're supposed to write their address, their home country. Okay, so check, we've got that. Speaking, we've got our pronunciation syllables, and we've got the grammar talk, and of course we've got the hot seat, which is a lot of speaking, and listening. Remember our activity with the little headphones here on the first page where they're listening to a passage and then responding to questions. Check, 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 good to go. Preparation, here it is. I've got a little bit more to do because I've got to go find some forms of ID. Active engagement, I've got my 2 pieces of active engagement. Building the community, we're going to use the hot seat for that. We're going to use the working in pairs on the information gap for that. And of course, talking about our IDs. Where are you from? Where's your driver's license from? Where do you live? And then communication. So I've got all my pieces here, and I've got all my pieces here. I'm ready to go. I'm going to print out Master 13. I'm going to make copies. I'm going to get some tag board and put the vocabulary words on it to play hot seat. So I'm going to put that down here in my notes too. Make hot seat vocab words. And we have lots of tag board here in the office. You can use a plain piece of paper. You can use construction paper. You can write it on the whiteboard behind them if they're sitting here. So you got lots of choices of things to do. I wouldn't use something this small, but something about that size so that everybody out in the class can see it. All right, and I'm looking forward to teaching this lesson. Thank you very much for joining me.